Democrats. Today is Thursday, May 23rd, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. And I've been away for a long time, and so has Representative Mickey Dollens. And so without a whole lot of lead in, I thought it's important just for us to jump right on in and talk about a legislative update. But before we get started, Rep, I want to mention that tomorrow, May 24th, is the last day to register to vote to be able to participate in the election on June 18th. So if you happen to stumble across this and you're not registered to vote, you still have time to register to vote, and you can register at your county election board, at online, and at your local tag agency. So get registered to vote so that you can participate in the primary on June 18th.
Madam Chair, I'm so glad you brought that up. And for anyone looking to where they need to go to register to vote, go to okvoterportal.org and you can put in some information in there. It may be okvoterportal.com, but you can Google that and it will bring up everything you need to find out exactly how you can register to vote. And it is imperative that you turn out to vote this election. It is becoming wild, and we'll get into some of the issues there. But Alicia, it's so great to be back here on the show. I know I've missed the past couple of weeks. I'm sure a lot of Oklahomans out there can relate with the allergy issues, so please forgive my nasally voice today. It's been a struggle, but that's just part of being an Oklahoman, right? You try out all the different allergy medicines, you take them all together, and finally you find something that works. But I've been surviving that, and then also all the crazy storms. Also, it's going to get maybe a little dicey tonight, so everyone needs to be weather aware. But hopefully everyone can get out tomorrow, and if you have friends and family who aren't registered to vote, you can share this message with them, get them on the OK Voter portal, and get them signed up and registered to vote.
So as we talk about voting and the importance of voting, that leads me to think about how important it is for voters to be active in the whole thing, like direct democracy. I can't even talk today. Direct democracy, or the ballot initiative process.
Oh my gosh. You may have seen signature gatherers out collecting signatures for State Question 832. This would raise the minimum wage, something that hasn't been done in Oklahoma for over 15 years. It's currently stuck at $7.25. You know, they say that for an adult who has a couple of kids and has an apartment, they would need to be working 90 hours a week at $77.25 just to afford that apartment and the amenities that go with it. And it's incredible how often in this capital I hear this notion that the people who are making minimum wage are just your high school kids living at home. No, remind them of this, that 90% of people who earn minimum wage are adults, and they're just struggling to get by. And so I get back to the state question. The state question 832 would raise that minimum wage all the way up to $15 by year 2030. However, we have seen politicians in red states pull out all the tactics to undermine the voice of the people. And today, you couldn't have asked for a better example of exactly what that looks like. I debated against this bill. If you want to watch the whole debate, go to my Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, look up my latest video. You can see some exchange between me and the House author. This is actually authored by Speaker McCall, and it was presented by Floor Leader John Eccles. And I asked him, why would you want to expand the challenge period, which is 10 days on the front end and the back end? It's been 10 days since 1910, so 114 years. It's never been an issue. But all of a sudden, you want to expand that from 10 days to 90 days with an emergency amendment, meaning it would go into effect the second the governor signs it. Why? Can you cite a specific example? The author of the bill said, no, I can't cite a specific example. We just think it would be better for people to have 90 days to challenge a state question. And I said, but didn't just a month ago, you passed a bill that expanded it from 10 days to 20 days? That's a bit more reasonable. Why can't we just go with that? Oh, no, we need to make it go from 20 days to 90 days. And I started to do the math, and I said, well, okay, everyone out working really hard right now to gather signatures for State Question 832, they have a deadline of July 14th to gather about 90,000, roughly 90,000 valid signatures. That cutoff date is July 14th, and it's looking like they're going to succeed. And if you're going to go out 90 days from July 14th, that's October 12th. So when this bill becomes law, someone can come in and wait on the 90th day and challenge the signature verification process on October 12th, which would prevent State Question 832 from being on the November 5th general election. And it would push it off to an obscure date in January or February, where they know they're going to have a lot less voter turnout. There's going to be a lot less money to get a yes campaign out to get people to vote for this. And this is another suppression tactic that controlling politicians, not only in Oklahoma, but across the United States, are using to take away the power of the people and tell them that your voice outside this Capitol doesn't matter. That's what they think. The only voices in this Capitol that matter are the ones that we set, the agendas that we have in here. And the moment that people out there start dictating to them, they want to shut it down. And we've seen this time and time again. The past few years, Medicaid expansion, criminal justice reform, medical marijuana, and now currently in process, we have raising the minimum wage. Inevitably, we're going to have abortion access, ending gerrymandering, campaign finance reform, open primaries. All of those future things they are in jeopardy now. And this is just one tactic that they're using to take away the will of the people. But this, expanding that from 10 days to 90 days, is a huge blow to this whole process, because you're looking at 6 months of litigation. And who's going to profit off of that? Lawyers. Who's going to profit off of that? Media, Google, Facebook, these media ads. So it's a big, not only is it suppressing the will of the people, but it's a giant cash grab as well. And for as many times as I've heard in this building that we need to keep big money out of these state questions, they are creating environments that are conducive to people spending big money on these state questions. Instead of talking about ways to dismantle the ballot initiative, I said we should be talking about ways to strengthen and enhance it. I authored a bill that would expand that window of signature gathering from 90 days to 180 days. I won't go into all the details why it's great, but basically it gives petitioners an opportunity to go out to rural Oklahoma and gather signatures, as opposed to having to stay in the most densely populated areas in Oklahoma.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I want to, just for clarification, I want to make sure that I understand what has happened now. The signature gathering time is 90 days. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what it used to be was 10 days after someone files that people could challenge it or have questions or all that kind of stuff. Then we had 90 days to collect, and then 10 days after all the signatures for people to dispute it or challenge it and all that. Now we've gone to 90 days at the front after someone files it to challenge it, 90 days to collect the signatures, and then another 90 days for them to dispute it. So they have 6 months to fight something that the signature gatherers have 90 days.
Exactly. Yeah, they're doubling the protest period while keeping the signature gathering period the same, which is already the shortest amount of any state out of the 26 states in the United States that have the ability and the opportunity for ballot initiatives. And so, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Alicia. You're exactly right. They're creating an environment on the front end and back end that extends it. There's never been an issue with the 10-day challenge period. It went through its course at the beginning of 832. As you remember, the Farm Bureau and the State Chamber, they challenged it within the 10 days that it was filed. The state Supreme Court said, no, this is constitutional. They can proceed and gather signatures. They appealed it. The Supreme Court said, no, it's fine. They can go and continue. And because people are now able to, better so than any other time in state history, organize, collect signatures, get messages out there. This is why we're seeing, and then really with the overturn of Roe v. Wade and the U.S. Supreme Court saying now this is a state issue, we've seen 7 out of 7 states where it's gone to the vote of the people. They've voted to codify abortion access. And of course, that's a huge reason why Oklahoma politicians are trying to get out ahead of this as well, to prevent a initiative petition to where the people of Oklahoma could vote to retain or have their reproductive freedoms.
So I have one more question. Were they successful in adding the fee for all of the signature gatherers?
You know, that was one of the tactics earlier, $1,000 fee that was eliminated. This bill also did have a background check, which was completely unnecessary. The only reason that it was shown that the only reason for the background check was to discourage people from going forth and becoming volunteers to collect signatures. I asked the author, would this prevent a signature gatherer from collecting signatures if there was a criminal history? Oh, no, it wouldn't. That would be unconstitutional. This simply requires a volunteer pay $50 for a background check, and then they can collect signatures. So there was no point in that other than to dissuade people from maybe bringing up their past. You know, there's a whole host of reasons why people wouldn't want to go through a background check, let alone the $50 fee is not too affordable. And then, so that is a good thing. This bill did have the filing fee and the background check. We got those removed, but it still has that 90-day challenge period on the front end and back end. And so that it is still a terrible bill that's going to create a lot of havoc in the whole ballot initiative process.
Okay, so it was going to be adding more money to the state's coffers, I guess. I guess that's one thing, I guess. It was just going to collect more money.
Well, not so much the state's coffers, but people who are involved, like the lawyers. So if I were like a yes or no campaign, they're going to hire lawyers to fight and to, for example, this Farm Bureau State Chamber that I mentioned earlier, their lawyers filed motions to call that 832 was unconstitutional. So it'll make them money. But really, you know, that's a very concentrated sector. But really, you're looking at like media buys. It just makes it overall more expensive, whether you're on the opposition or whether you're on the for side. It's going to make it much more expensive. And then we could talk about the whole process of the signature gathering, which is a whole other grift on the back end that raises a lot of questions. And so, you know, that's kind of unusual on itself. Challenging a state question on the front end makes sense because you're trying to say, hey, is this constitutional? You get the go ahead from the state Supreme Court. They're going to determine yes or no. And then you go ahead and collect signatures. But on the back end for the 90-day challenge period, you got to wonder, like, this has been contracted by the Secretary of State with a private vendor who the Secretary of State has chosen to collect signatures. So on like that 89th day, someone can come in and challenge the Secretary of State to say, hey, these aren't valid. And then who's going to reaffirm or who's going to reassure that the signatures are invalid? We're going to hire another third party vendor to come in and do it. By the way, that whole vending process was a no bid process that was kind of an insider deal. Not kind of, it definitely was. This vendor created a software program. Former GOP leader awarded it to a political pollster who then gets $300,000 from the state every single year on retainer, whether they do 1, 2, or no ballot initiative signature verifications.
Well, that sounds like a reason to audit, but we're not there yet. But speaking of audit, Ryan Walters, where are we with that?
You know, House Democrats have tried for months since the beginning of session, and even before that, we've been asking the Speaker of the House to form a bipartisan committee to look into the allegations. We need to investigate and bring together all of the facts to see, obviously, which we believe is very apparent, reasons to initiate articles of impeachment. And we've just been stonewalled at every point. And so today, leadership, and along with the House Democratic Caucus, had a press conference where we have been talking to the Attorney General and the state auditor. We are requesting an audit into the Department of Education to look into the mismanagement of taxpayer funds, the mismanagement of taxpayer funds to promote the state superintendent, the not filing for incredibly important federal grants to address unfortunate towns who were hit by disasters like the recent tornado. These type of things we believe would constitute a derelict of duty, which would be reason to incorporate the articles of impeachment. But as House Minority Democrats, our pleas and our basically our concerns that we've been bringing to the forefront have gone ignored. So we're hoping that through an internal audit by the state auditor, and with the help of the Attorney General, then it could be appear to be more bipartisan and hopefully get to the bottom of this mismanagement that we believe has been taking place in the Department of Education for the past year and a half.
Are we any closer to a yes?
Well, we just sent the letter today, and so we will be working closely with the state auditor and the Attorney General, and hoping that they fulfill our request for this audit. That we know for a fact that Oklahomans across the state, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, and Independent, many of whom would like to see the same.
Okay. All right. Well, so I saw while I was getting prepared for today, I saw something flash in my email that a budget has been agreed on. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, after 4 BS summits, or the budget summits, they have come to an agreement. And I'd have to tip my hat to Senate Pro Tem Greg Treat from the very first budget summit. He said it would be fiscally irresponsible of us to incorporate an income tax cut when we just eliminated the state portion of the grocery sales tax. And Speaker McCall and Governor Stitt were steadfast, and they said, no, we're not moving until we get our income tax cut. And it was a back and forth for 4 budget summits. And Senate Pro Tem and his leadership team, they stood strong, and they said it would be terribly unwise of us to pass an income tax cut and without having certainty that we have the revenue to fund core services in our government. And he stood to his guns, and thankfully he was able to get Speaker McCall and Governor Stitt to give up, and they came to an agreement. Now, while I'm glad that that is the right thing to do, we don't want to end up like we did back in 2016. We still see a lot of glaring issues in this proposed budget. While we are combing through the details, we will be here tomorrow, and we will be here on Memorial Day on Monday, and then we'll start voting on these packages and then the overall budget by early next week, and probably out of here by Thursday, which we're constitutionally obligated to sine die by 5:30 p.m. on Friday, the last Friday of May, which I believe is May 30th. But we're planning to be out of here by Thursday. But even so, we have nearly $4 billion in reserves that could be going to fund more school counselors, to fund school lunches, to help with childcare subsidies, to help daycare workers. There's so many things that would give us, the state, incredible return on investment and help working families if we were to just prioritize them and use the money that we have. And it would still be fiscally responsible to invest in that, because like I said, it always is going to bring a return on investment when you can help families when it comes to something that is essential like childcare. And also how we have been trying to, the Republicans have been asking for volunteers and chaplains, nonprofits, and churches to volunteer their services to fulfill core functions of government, whereas that should be our job that we do with that $4 billion in reserve to actually pay school counselors what they should earn compared to other states, which in Oklahoma, they start off at $40,000. And as we know, in any other state around us, they can make a lot more than that. We have a critical shortage in school counselors. Prior Superintendent Joy Hoffmeister requested for an additional $58 million that was ignored. And we're asking for that again to ensure that we can hire more school counselors and pay the ones that we have a decent salary.
So we have the money, right? Maybe not to do everything, but we have some money, and we're in a position of bragging about our savings rather than fully staffing some of our core services.
Yeah, that's kind of been the trend since I've been here. They're quick to give away the 0.25% income tax cut, which for someone who's making about $60,000 a year is about, at the end of the year, about $36 in their pockets. And instead of taking that collectively and using it to invest in quality of life and core services and paying our teachers what they deserve, state employees deserve a pay raise. It's been way too long since they've had a pay raise. So there's so much that we could be doing for Oklahomans who need help that this state just continues to ignore. But that's why we're, as House Democrats, that's our job, to raise these issues, to use our microphones to amplify the concerns of our constituents. And eventually, hopefully, as more people hear this message, they'll start to vote for Democrats and for people who have their best interests at heart and who know that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that many people just need a little help into getting to a point where they can make the most of their potential. And that's always at the forefront of our minds.
So what you just stated is why I'm a Democrat, right? In Oklahoma, it can be challenging sometimes to be a Democrat, but I know that our elected officials down at 23rd and Lincoln as Democrats are fighting for us all, and recognize that when you do well, I do well. And we know that if we help our neighbors, it helps us. And that's what needs to be focused on. And I'm so grateful that you guys are down there with your microphones, with your research, with your guts to be there to represent us and make sure that you're representing everyone. And so thank you for that.
Hey, likewise.
Thanks. I'm sorry that you have to work on the holiday weekend, but that's a little known fact. People think that you guys have a part-time job and that you're only doing it, but they don't realize that your schedule can change on a dime. Your schedule can change on a whim, but you're there and you're fighting for us, and we are grateful.
And I am grateful. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a complete honor to represent the people of House District 93 in South Oklahoma City. It's an honor to be on this show with you. Thank you for all that you do in the Oklahoma Democratic Party, in getting people registered to vote, informing them, having candidate workshops. You know, a lot of these candidates put their name on the ballot to run in districts that are almost impossibly hard to win, and yet they're feeling supported now, and they have resources, much more so than when I ran in 2016. And so for that, I say thank you as well. We're all in this together. And eventually our message will break through, and people will see who's really showing up to the Capitol to fight for their best interests, and not just those who can afford fancy lobbyists who hang out in that gallery and try to get our ear to pass their votes for the clients who can afford them.
Yikes. That's more than a mouthful. Thank you so very much, Representative Dollens. We all appreciate Legislative Update Thursday. I'm glad that you're feeling well and you were here. You were able to update us. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a great week and stay safe tonight.